Good
way.
to see you.
Looking sharp.
Thank you. It's a boy's large.
Thank you very much. Super sharp,
my grandmother said if you respect someone, you gotta dress to show them.
Aww.
What's up?
Oh, Jake Hamilton, Fox Chicago. That's okay. You're not missing much. I promise you.
I'm really catching it up today.
Do you know who you are? You can wear whatever you want. Burlap sack if you want to, sir.
That's my guy right there. Thank you.
I think Mr. Sorkin has proven that he knows how to write about people, whether it's Molly or Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or Billy Beane or Charlie Wilson. If he were to write a movie about you, what is the moment in your life that you think would make the best movie, and what do you think it would be called?
Oh, wow. Good question. It's so early.
I want him to write, and I said this, I want him to write a comedy about behind the scenes of a play or behind the scenes of making a film. I think he would because he's really funny and he loves musical theater and he loves theater and loves filmmaking. It would be really interesting to see the behind the scenes mechanics of it all.
I would love that. I'd be first in line.
Yeah.
I think I would make a film about parenting. Yeah.
I would like to see the Idris Elba parenting film.
I think that's something because I'm blessed with being a parent. I love it, and the complexities of it are, shared, but often private, But so dads will sit down and go, man, my son, and they're very similar stories. But the moment with your child is a very private moment, and I think Aaron could be an amazing sort of viewpoint on that.
Because he's a teenage daughter, right?
So he is, exactly. He would know. So that would be good, yeah.
He would know. One of the things I found most fascinating about Molly is that she kept so much to herself. Despite the story being out there, she kept a lot of secrets, a lot of other people's secrets. If you could ask her one question and have her give you the open, honest, 100% truth about anything, what would you ask her?
I don't want to know about gossipy stuff, I guess. No, I mean, I guess what I would ask her, and I think this is probably what she's asking herself right now, is why she played by the rules that the guys had set for her in that industry. Why she kind of gave up so much of herself to try to find success. And I think at the end of the film, you realize that she's done doing that. And, but I don't blame her for it. So I think but that's the question I would probably ask her. What made you go and buy a new dress and change everything about the way you looked and that?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know what I would ask, but I mean, there's a real interesting irony about the fact that in poker, one has to sort of, do this, look under, and then project that. Okay, right? There's a real sort of weird duality to the fact that Molly was great at doing that. Game or no game, she obviously had this massive amount of intellect and, self-drive, and then played this face for them. It's quite an interesting. I didn't never really.
It's like actors.
Yeah,
she could almost be sitting right there, which I think would be really cool.
Absolutely, because you do have to do that, right? As actors.
We're doing that right now.
Right now.
I'm not.
They don't want to be here at
clearly,
all.
I'm on my sofa here. I'm clearly,
So what I found interesting watching her is that she never played poker. I love that she saw the mistakes other people were making and never allowed herself to do that. What is a mistake that you've seen people make in this business, and you've said to yourself, I'm not going to do that?
Actually, I mean, I just directed something very recently, and I got to sit on the other side watching actors, and directing actors. And I was watching, I'm not going to say I've never done that, but there were certain things about some actors that were just I wouldn't say unprofessional, but just lazy, okay?
Yes.
And you go, especially when you've been 15-hour days doing this one thing so that you can present to this actor, and this actor's like, I didn't know. And you go, that's what I've learned, coming from, just because of this experience as a director, that I will not be doing that. When, a director's been working all day to come and sit with you to talk about a character, he's handing the work to you. He's handing it to you and say, just give it to me. And that's something that I think I learned.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
For me, I've seen a lot of people bullied, and I would say a few years ago, I realized, I'm not going to allow that.
Guys, it's an absolute honor to talk to you. Sometimes you do these and you're talking about something important, and this is one of those moments. So thank you for letting me sit across from you. I appreciate it.
So sweet.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
it's good to see you guys.
Well
Thank you very much. Thinking about all the amazing people you've written about, Molly, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Billy Beane, Charlie Wilson, who was the easiest to wrap your brain around and understand, and who was the most difficult?
That's a really interesting question. I think Steve Jobs was the most difficult to wrap my brain around because I simply as a father myself, I couldn't understand the relationship that he had with his oldest daughter. I will say that Molly is the most fun I've had, the most excited I've been to try to wrap my brain around a real person. Hers is a phenomenally nuanced, very interesting brain far superior to my own. I've really never met someone so competent in my life. And she's a very funny woman. She's got a dry sense of humor. She's incredibly smart, and she has been through a kind of hellish experience and is able to look at it with perspective and talk about it very interestingly. So I read her book and then had a meeting with her. I did not expect to be meeting the person that I was meeting. I thought I was going to be meeting kind of a gossip who was cashing in on her brush with famous people. I felt like an idiot by the end of that meeting because she was anything but that. But I knew at the end of that meeting there is a movie here that I badly want to write. It's not the obvious movie that you would think it is. It sort of doesn't stay in its lane. And I knew at the end of that meeting, it was just an hour long, that I was going to write it. I was kind of up all night, so I was so excited thinking about it. I was telling all my friends about it, my agent about it, and that's always a good sign when you find yourself talking about it. When you're excited about it, it usually means go to the next step.
Well, I'm glad you did. You've worked with some of the greatest directors of all time.
Yeah.
They've directed your work. And not to discount the work that they did, because it's among my favorite films, but just for fun, now that you have been behind the director's chair, if you could theoretically have directed one of your past scripts, which one do you think you'd be most interested in going back and taking a crack at?
Well, I'm very happy that the directors who have directed the things that I've written in the past did. They were the best directors for those movies. But if you want me to answer your question, my very first movie, A Few Good Men.
Would you? What are some of the changes that maybe you might? Not that it needs changing by any means whatsoever.
It's the writing it was my starter movie. It was the first play that I wrote. It was my starter play. It was the first screenplay that I wrote, and I would love to have it back and write it again. And I'd love to be able to step in there and give some notes. But again, that said, I thought Rob Reiner did a magnificent job.
Absolutely fantastic job. I got 1,000 more questions they're giving me. I
wish I could answer them
no,
for you.
You got a couple of people that lined up outside to talk to you. Congratulations on this,
Thanks,
sir.
man.
You
I
should be
really
very
appreciate
proud.
it.
Very good to see you.
Congratulations on your marriage.
Thank you,
On your
sir.
wedding.
Thank you, sir. She has very low standards.